And we can begin with Ms. Cochran.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for inviting me to join you today. So I'm with TICAS, the Institute for College Access and Success. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan research and is this microphone on?
No, press a, you got
Thank you.
It's the red light on.
So TICAS is the Institute for College Access and Success. We're located in Oakland, California, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization focusing on improving educational opportunities and outcomes both nationally and in California. So as an organization, we focus primarily on financial aid because it's so critical to students' access and success in college. You know, whether or not they know financial aid is available, that influences whether they apply to college. How much financial aid they get and of what types, it influences both whether they go and also where they go and how they go. And of course, how much debt they end up with at the end of the day influences whether they buy a house or start a family or start a business. So increasingly over the years, we've seen more and more of these aspects of college costs and financial aid boil down to the question of whether college is affordable. However, we have no real standard definition of what college affordability means. So, because, of course, to people with few resources, something even at a very low cost can be unaffordable, and something at a much higher cost can be affordable easily to someone with more resources. So today I wanted to discuss our new analysis on college costs and affordability, along with some policy recommendations for the Budget Subcommittee to consider. So the document I've shared with you today, entitled College Costs and Affordability in California, includes net prices for federal aid recipients at California's public colleges, which of course enroll the vast majority of undergraduate students in the state. Net price is the total cost of college, including not just tuition, but textbooks, transportation, room and board, living expenses, minus any of the grant aid, anything that doesn't have to be repaid from either federal, state, or institutional sources. Only data for the lowest income students at the community colleges are included because so few community college students with incomes above $30,000 actually receive any federal aid. So as you can see here, for both the University of California and the California State University, where we have data across income groups, the net price of college increases with family income. For instance, at UC, the net price for 1 year of college starts at $8,800 for the lowest income students with families of incomes of $30,000 or less, reaches up to about $28,000 for the families with incomes above $110,000. At CSU, that true cost of college ranges from about $6,600 to about $20,000. While net price is a much better gauge of what students are actually asked to pay than just the sticker price or total cost of attendance for college, it's not the same as college affordability because we have to relate that back to what the resources actually are. College affordability just simply cannot be interpreted as making the cost of college, that actual price, as low as possible, but rather making the cost as manageable as possible. So comparing students' net costs to their family incomes gives a sense of how manageable those costs actually are. Troublingly, we see here the exact opposite relationship as with the net prices. We see that the net cost of college represents the largest share of family income for the lowest income families, and the smallest share of family income for the highest income families. So that $8,800 for UC education for families from under $30,000 may look like a relative bargain. It represents an expectations that those lowest income families dedicate 64%, almost 2/3 of their discretionary income towards college costs. For that highest income group, that cost of $28,000 looks comparatively high, but it represents a much smaller share of their family income. So to be very clear, I'm not suggesting that college is easily affordable for any of the students in any of these groups. But I think too often we assume that low-income students are fully insulated from college costs because of the grant aid that's available to them, and that's simply not the case. What I'm also trying to point out with this analysis is the imbalance between the income groups. And as disheartening as this is, I also would like to point out that this really is, from how we see it in the data and the methodology, this is really a vision of college affordability through rose-colored glasses. We made a lot of methodological choices that were very conservative here, just to give you a sense of what I mean. We assume families, students from families with incomes between $0 and $30,000 of income had $30,000 of income. we assumed that these students were coming from a family size of 1 rather than probably 3 or 4, which is more typical. So, if we actually made more realistic assumptions rather than more conservative, safe assumptions, the magnitude of the difference between the high and the low income groups would grow exponentially. So to target the greatest affordability challenges in the state, we must improve the Cal Grant B program and help more eligible students in the state receive Cal Grants. Many of the students in this bottom 2 income groups on this chart, though far from all of them, receive state Cal Grants and most likely Cal Grant B awards. Cal Grant B is available to students in 2014 with family incomes of up to $45,900 for a family of 4. And it provides recipients with up to 3 years of tuition assistance and up to 4 years of an access award to cover other costs, other non-tuition costs. Our analyses, which are all written up in this coalition document, which I've also shared a copy of you with. Our analyses have shown that the value of this access award has dwindled so substantially that it now has just about a quarter of the purchasing power it used to have. In large part because of this, our analyses have also found that the lowest income Cal Grant recipients get grants that are smaller than higher income Cal Grant recipients, than the ones that they get. So over the past year, there's been unprecedented attention to the need to improve Cal Grant B for the lowest income students. However, we really haven't seen any action on improving Cal Grant B in part because of the cost. Our 3 specific recommendations are to increase the Cal Grant B Access Award, so that low-income students can help limit their work hours and focus on their studies so they can actually get through college. Since 2012-13, after the Access Award was reduced by 5%, saving the state about $12 million, according to estimates last year, the maximum stipend has just been $1,473. Our second recommendation was to serve more Cal Grant eligible students. At the community colleges, which enroll 2/3 of the state's undergraduate students, only 16% of the very lowest income aid applicants receive Cal Grants. One of the primary reasons for this is the number of competitive awards that are available to students who are a little bit outside of the high school graduation window. There's only 22,500 awards each year. In 2013-14, there were 16 eligible applicants for every one available award. And combined, those groups, those hundreds of thousands of students who did not receive an award but met the eligibility criteria, had an average family income of below $21,000 for a family size of 3. Our third recommendation is to include tuition awards for all Cal Grant B first-year students so that students can really choose the college that's right for them. Cal Grant A students who generally have higher incomes already get 4 years of tuition coverage, so the lower income students should too. All 3 of those recommendations have been endorsed by a wide range of organizations representing students, civil rights, social justice, and the business communities. All 3 recommendations would also help to improve Cal Grants and college affordability for low and truly middle-income students enrolled at all types of colleges across the state. As you've already discussed, in addition to the Cal Grant adjustments described by the Department of Finance and in your agenda, this year's budget includes $107 million in new resources for the Middle Class Scholarship created as part of last year's budget agreement. This program focuses on bringing the costs down for upper middle and high income families, those with incomes generally between $80,000 and $150,000. However, students from low and lower middle income families will not be able to benefit from this program. So if the legislature were to find another $107 million to deepen investments in low-income college affordability too, it would be enough to increase the Cal Grant B Access Award from $1,473 to over $2,000. Alternatively or additionally, another $107 million could be used to increase the number of new competitive Cal Grants paid next year by roughly 50,000 awards. Neither of these steps would solve all the problems that I've tried to lay out today, but they would be down payments towards doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. We move on now to Ms. DeCrudro.
Thank you and good morning. Good morning, Chair Block and Senator Liu. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in your hearing this morning. My name is Alicia DeCrudro, and I am the president of Mills College. We were founded in 1852. We're an independent liberal arts college for undergraduate women with graduate programs for women and men. Mills is considered one of the most diverse liberal arts colleges in the country, where women of color and first-generation students make up the majority of our student body. I'm also here as a member of the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities, or AICCU. Mills is one of 75 members of AICCU. We are all WASC-accredited, private, nonprofit higher education institutions. We are deeply appreciative of this committee's support of our sector and the more than 320,000 students, both at the graduate and undergraduate level, that we serve. Over 70% of our undergraduate students are California residents. The sector produces 20% of the undergraduate degrees in the state and over 50% of the graduate degrees. At Mills, we have 997 undergraduate students and 611 graduate students. 30% of our students are first-generation college students, and I'm very proud to say that our first to second year retention rate of these students is 85%. 46% of our undergraduate students are students of color. Since the mid-1950s, the sector's partnership with the state has centered on the Cal Grant program and providing low-income California students access and choice as to where they would like to pursue higher education. The partnership also recognized that allowing California residents to use their state grant in the private nonprofit sector was an effective and efficient use of our capacity in state dollars. Today, AICCU institutions collectively serve approximately 32,500 California residents through the Cal Grant program. Our Cal Grant A students have an average family income of about $41,000. For our Cal B families, it's about $16,500. The sector's Cal Grant students are the students who have been historically underrepresented in higher education. 41% are Latino, 17% Asian and Pacific Islander, and 7% African American. 63% of the sector's Cal Grant population are first-generation college students. In addition, and despite all of the challenges that come with being first generation and low income, our Cal Grant students graduate at faster rates than our student body. 62% graduate in 4 years. I think these statistics demonstrate how financial aid can be a very effective tool in reaching out to underserved students who desire a higher education by making it financially possible for them to attend the institution of their choice. A choice that leads to where they will be most successful in attaining a college degree. I actually hope you've had the opportunity to meet some of our Cal Grant students who are in the Capitol on Tuesday, and we have some who are in the room today. If you've heard their stories of perseverance and commitment to higher education, you'll understand that they see this as their avenue out of poverty. At Mills, we're committed to enhancing educational access for and retention of a diverse student population. And the Cal Grants play a vital role in our ability to serve that diversity of population and to retain and graduate deserving students. For the current academic year, over 30% of Mills undergraduate students receive Cal Grants, and 53% of our Cal Grant recipients are first-generation college students. As you might imagine, the Cal Grants are particularly important for this population of students. According to the California Student Aid Commission, 73% of all Cal Grant recipients are women, and it is they who will be disproportionately impacted if drastic cuts are implemented. As stated earlier, the maximum grant award for students who seek to attend a private nonprofit college or university has been reduced in the last 2 years by 6% and is set to decrease for new students in the 2014-15 budget year. This is in addition to no increases in the maximum award since 2000. The pending 11% reduction is a $1,000 cut to the award, which is a very significant amount for students who depend on every dollar to make ends meet. As the president of Mills College, I can assure you that I and my colleagues across the state are committed to providing access to a broad range of students. We understand how life-changing an education can be, but it is a reality that we cannot continue to supplement what the state has cut. It is a myth that private, nonprofit institutions are all wealthy, serve only the wealthy, and have generous reserves or endowments that can replace state funds. At Mills, a full 97% of students receive some form of financial aid, and the average Mills grant aid package of our Cal Grant recipients is almost $19,000. Unfortunately, at Mills and most AICCU institutions, any cuts in the Cal Grant program will have a devastating effect on our students, who in this economic climate are already struggling to meet the costs of their education. Most of our students work many, many hours, quite frankly, in addition to going to school. For many students, aid programs such as Cal Grants is really the difference between being able to attend college and giving up that dream. There are students and families who have sacrificed and are still sacrificing to obtain an education. Implementing drastic cuts now will affect the ability of academically qualified, financially disadvantaged students to obtain a college degree in California. These are students who have worked so hard to be where they are now and who represent the future workforce of California. While we recognize that hard decisions which will impact the future of our state must be made, we urge you to consider the fact that the investment in an educated workforce is one of the best investments we can make for the future of California. At Mills, like many of the AICCU institutions, we are tuition dependent. Many of us are still recovering from the economic downturn of 2008 and are building losses in our endowments back up. Increased benefits costs, employment costs, and cost of doing business really strain college and university budgets and lessen our ability to make up the differences when students' other award options are constrained or drastically reduced. With the decline in the value of the grant amount and the continuous cuts, it is a significant concern of mine and among my colleagues in the sector that low-income students will be deterred from seeking admission in the private nonprofit sector. This is not only bad public policy to constrain choice and access, but bad economic policy when data demonstrate there are cost savings for the state in supporting Cal Grant students in the private sector. We also don't have the capacity in the UC and CSU systems to serve all students who wish to attend a four-year institution. For these reasons, we urge the committee, when it is time to take action on the budget, to repeal the 11% reduction in the 2014-15 budget. It is our estimation that repeal will cost between $13 and $15 million. I am certain that I share the same concerns with this committee, that we must keep our students in California and not export them to neighboring states that are eager to have them. These students are our future workforce, taxpayers, and leaders. Again, I thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in the hearing this morning.
Thank you, President DeCudro. One statistic you just mentioned, the cost factor of 14 to 15 million, we've heard from AICCU and from you now. When we heard from Department of Finance just a bit ago, the estimate was that over time increasing that would be, I guess, $50 million because the awards go on for 3 or 4 years. Just later in the year, as we move through the budget process, I'd like to get some comment from AICCU and Department of Finance or LAO as to what the true cost of this might be if we do away with the $11 million cut this year. Senator Liu, any questions?
Well, I'm just, again, curious. You mentioned the number 64% of your students graduating in 4 years. For me, you know, it's a better investment getting our kids in and out of the system. But I had anticipated a larger number of your kids. I mean, so the other kids are getting out in 5 years or 6 years because of inability to get classes, or, you know, can you tell me what's going on?
I think that's a part of it. I also think that our Cal Grant students are highly motivated to graduate in 4 years.
Well, I know, that's part of the statistics that we've been given, but what is your just cost of going to Mills, for instance?
The average cost of private college degree in California right now is about $32,000.
Okay, and the state right now is about $9,000. Our participation is about $9,000,
Mm-hmm.
and so the rest of it has to be made up through institutional grants.
And at Mills, we will provide an average of about $19,000 per student, per Cal Grant student, yes.
Okay.
How many Cal Grant students are there in the private independent schools in California? Do you have that figure?
I don't have the exact number with me, but we can get that.
Yeah, I might have already heard that from one of our meetings, but I'm trying to think total what the cost would be to the independent colleges, the number of students times $1,000 each that apparently the colleges. Okay, I'm told we have about 32,500 Cal Grant students. So then that number times 1,000 would be the cost to the system of not having these students funded by the state. I would anticipate that some colleges might be able to absorb that because some of the independent colleges certainly do have high endowments and are fairly well off. Others certainly would not be able to. Have you heard any talk of any type of almost means test per college in terms of which colleges were funded and which weren't, as opposed to all of them being funded? Like, does Stanford need the extra $1,000 per student?
I have not heard that talk,
Okay.
but
I think someone wants to come forward.
wants to.
Good morning, Veronica Villalobos with AICCU. We did do an internal survey regarding the ability to backfill of our institutions. There's probably a handful of institutions who have the ability to backfill with grant aid. This is the third year of cuts, so the first year many institutions were able to do it or tried to do it because it was made at the last minute. It was a 5% across the board cut by the governor, and so folks were very concerned that particularly our renewal students, it was going to hit them the hardest. But this is the third year, and I would say probably a handful of schools are able to do the $1,000 backfill, but the majority are similar to Mills College, where you'll see increased loans or just a gap in aid, which means students will likely have to work more or find private loans.
Okay, appreciate that. And did TICAS have any opinion regarding this particular cut to the private independent schools?
TICAS has not taken a position on this cut. Certainly in our general work, I think any cut, particularly that's made that hurts current students, is always a concern. I understand from the discussions today that's not an issue with this one. I think most of our all of our recommendations that I presented today are sector agnostic, and we believe that the best way to support students' choice is to provide a good grant for low-income students, which those low-income students can choose to take wherever they see fit.
Do you have an estimate? PPIC and CalCompete say we need more than 1 million additional bachelor's degrees by 2025. The three recommendations you've made today, do you have any projection in terms of how many more students that might put into the system, resulting in how many more bachelor's degrees?
We do not. Certainly have partnered with other organizations who have done such projections of the number of degrees awarded. I think it's reasonable to believe that particularly an increase in the Cal Grant B award will make a substantial difference. I mean, right now our Cal Grant program, we have 2/3 of the state's undergraduate students attending the community colleges, and they get 6% of the Cal Grant dollars. Some of our analyses have shown that those students in particular, not the ones necessarily in this cohort, but have some students in that sector have the most egregious affordability challenges in the state. And I think if we would allow them, if we could craft packages of financial aid to enable them to go full time, that would enable them to transfer and then earn, AAs, bachelor's degrees, and what have you. I think that's where some of our biggest completion problems are, some of our biggest affordability problems are. I think if we're really going to move the needle on degree attainment in the state, that's where we have to focus.
In terms of cost effectiveness, given a limited amount of money the state has, it would be very interesting to see a projection that if we adopted, say, these three recommendations, what the cost would be, but also what that would provide in bachelor's degree students down the road. Of course, it would be speculative, but some reasoned approximation would just give us more data to work with and would be helpful. In terms of the cost of implementing these three recommendations, do you have a projection in terms of what it would cost to do this year?
I think any of those three recommendations could be done at various scales. So, increasing the number of eligible students who are served. You could increase it by 2,000 awards. You could increase it by 200,000 awards. There were three bills last year. A number of bills that addressed these challenges last year. I believe all of them. One of them is stopped in Senate Education Committee. The other two in Senate Appropriations. Those three bills had a combined phased-in cost of about $300 million, just under $300 million, over the next few years. So all of them would have done it in some, a more limited fashion than solving the whole problem. But all of them would have made great strides.
Well, you all do great work, both you and AICCU, and appreciate that. And look forward to continuing this conversation as the year goes on. Any further comments, President Goudreau?
No, but thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay. Senator Liu, anything else?
Well, I just was curious, from AICCU, what is the general loan amount your kids graduate with? What's the burden?
Our most recent numbers were $29,000 at graduation.
Does anybody here have that for the publics?
It's just under 18,000.
18,000?
Just under 18,000. About 50% of California public bachelor's degree graduates have debt, and about 18,000. I believe the numbers across nonprofits in California, it's 62%. About
Those having loans, correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'd like to thank and excuse this panel, and we will move now to public comment. So members of the public who wish to speak, you'll have up to 2 minutes to speak. We appreciate brevity, but we want to hear what you have to say. There are 4 chairs up here. If anyone wants to come up, fill these 4 chairs. If there are more than 4 people that want to speak, we'll take a line. So we have 1. We have 2. Okay, looks like we have 3 members of the public who wish to address the board. Maybe a 4th coming up if you wish. Okay. When you begin your comments, please state your name, and if you represent an organization, what organization you represent.
Good morning, Erica Romero on behalf of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. We're here to ask you to restore the cuts to both the Cal Grant B Access Award, which as we know has not kept up with inflation, as well as the cuts to the AICCU colleges. Oftentimes we think of them as being, having lucrative endowments, but those that educate Latino students in particular, the Hispanic serving institutions that are nonprofit institutions are actually the really small ones, the Notre Dame de Nemours, the Oxys, and so they don't have the capacity to backfill necessarily, and they do a good job of graduating our students, so we encourage you to restore the cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, Ryan McElhaney with the Community College League of California. Just wanted to second Debbie Cochran from TCAS and say that, 2/3 of higher education students in the state are out of California Community College, but they only receive 6% of the total amount of awards from Cal Grants. We would encourage you to look at fixing this by doing 2 things, looking at increasing that access award or increasing the number of competitive Cal Grants. With hundreds of thousands of eligible applicants who do not receive one, it is actually significantly harder to get a Cal Grant than it is to get into UC Berkeley, and on par with getting into Stanford, Yale, or Harvard.
Okay, thank you. Interesting information. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Foresti. I'm from Notre Dame de Namur University. I'm a freshman there. I'm a Bay Area native, so I've lived in the Bay Area my whole life. My mom is a cancer patient, so 2 years ago when she was diagnosed, my hopes of college kind of slipped away because there was no money. When I got my financial aid packet from Notre Dame, it showed me that I did. And if the Cal Grant hadn't been there, I would have chosen to go to community college and probably never would have transferred out of it. My school has been like the best thing for me. I'm currently members of multiple clubs on campus, and they've shown me that my life is going to be perfect. And if without Cal Grant, I don't think my sister is going to have the same ability to pick a school like I did. So I just want her to be able to have that choice. So if you guys make the cuts, then she's not going to have as much ability to choose a school that's perfect for her. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. It's always important for us to hear from students. Appreciate that. Next.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sarah Couch. I'm president of the California State Student Association and a student at Sacramento State. I represent the 437,000 students of the CSU, as well as the nearly 3 million alumni that we have out of the California State University. The CSU serves first-generation students, the non-traditional student, the underrepresented students who rely on Cal Grants in order to be able to focus on their education and have access to the resources that they need to be successful. In terms of numbers, about 145,000 students of the CSU have a household income of less than $21,000, which comes to about a third of our students. And also the CSU receives approximately 30% of the Cal Grants for over 97,000 students. So those are large numbers. So essentially, when you look at it, supporting Cal Grants is supporting the CSU. Thank you.
Thank you. Start on the left. Next speaker.
Oh, good morning. Sorry. Good morning. My name is Vanessa O'Malley, and I'm a second-year student at Notre Dame de Namur University in the Bay Area. And I'd like to thank you for listening to us today, and I would also like to thank you for your past support of Cal Grants and students like me who attend the private nonprofit sector. Cal Grants have made a significant impact on my life. It has allowed me to go to college as a first-generation student from a family whose highest education was third grade. I'm from San Francisco, and my family consists of my mother and I. My mother is unable to work, and we heavily rely on grants and financial aid to help us. For 5 years, I lived in a small one-bedroom apartment with my mother, my sister, her husband, and their 2 children. I realized that this was not the life I wanted to continue living. I chose Notre Dame de Namur University because they supplied the financial support I needed and the small learning environment that helped me make the best of my education. I'd like to see my niece and nephew to be able to attend college and to be able to choose an institution that can best fit their needs as I can. And for students like me with a constant struggle, I urge the committee to repeal the 11% cut to the Cal Grant Maximum Award. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Jill Monroe from Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego. Nice to see you again. I'm here today to thank you for your continued support to those students seeking to choose an education at a private nonprofit institution in the state of California. The Cal Grants make it possible for nearly 500 students to attend PLNU with significant aid and to be part of a campus that in their minds best supports their needs. Here today again to urge you to repeal the 11% proposed cuts. That $1,000 is in fact an impact to these individual students and their families, but also to the university. I know there's been discussion that universities and the private nonprofit sector could continue to backfill should these cuts continue. And at some, yes, that may be possible. At others, that cost would then have to be impacted and passed along, and typically at a largely tuition-dependent institution, that would go towards potential increase in fees that we'd pass along to students, thus further challenging the access and opportunity. So again, urge you to repeal this cut and maintain access and equity for all students in California. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last speaker.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Mayan Avena, and also I am a first-year student at Notre Dame de Namur University in the Bay Area. Thank you for listening to us today. Also, I want to thank you for your past support of Cal Grants and students like me who attend the private nonprofit sector. As a first-generation student, I grew up in Redwood City and was raised by a single mother. Despite our low income status, my mom encouraged me to pursue higher education. So during my junior and senior year, I spent many hours applying to many scholarships. Despite having a cumulative GPA of a 3.8, with heavy involvement in multiple extracurricular activities, I did not receive a single one. I was frustrated because I thought I was not able to afford to attend any university. When I received financial assistance along with the Cal Grant, I realized that attending a 4-year university is possible. I chose Notre Dame de Namur because of its well-known reputation in community service and the intimate size of the campus. I truly believe it is extremely important that students have the same opportunity as I did and is able to attend college of their choice with financial support from the state. For students like me, I urge the committee to repeal the 11% cut of the Cal Grant Maximum Award. Thank you once again.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the speakers, particularly the students who came forward. You've given us a lot to think about and work on in the next couple of months as we move toward the May revise and a final budget. For the panelists, there were some tasks given out or that you've agreed to take on in terms of bringing us back information. Look forward to getting that. And with that, if no further comments from Senator Liu, we will conclude this hearing.